This is TWiT.
Speaking of making it happen, this is how our first interview is going to go. We had originally planned an interview with the co-founders of the company that I'm going to be talking about in a second, but due to some scheduling issues, we were not able to have them join us. So instead, because I think this company is so cool, I'm still going to talk about it because I want to share this with all of you and I want to hear Jason's thoughts on it. And I think that what they're doing is really neat. The company is called Deepwell Therapeutics. And what Deepwell aims to do is be a gaming company, both a publisher, but also kind of a person or a group that helps along the way as consultants, and then also game creators themselves. It's Deepwell DT. It stands for Digital Therapeutics. For mental health. I want to start, though, by kind of kicking things back, because you may go, okay, mental health for gaming, tell me more. Actually, back in 2020, and we may have even covered it on the show.
I think we might have, actually.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, approved the first prescription video game. This was a game that was approved for kids with ADHD. And this was, mind you, 7 years of studies that they went through to determine the efficacy of this game. So it's called Endeavor RX. It was called Project Evo in the early days. And this video game is for kids, it says, between the ages of 8 and 12 years old with ADHD, 7 years of clinical trials, studied 600 children to see if the game could make a difference. In it, the quote is that they saw improvements in ADHD impairments following a month of treatment with Endeavor RX that were maintained for up to a month. It's important to note that the study that is being quoted, the study that the company cites, was done by their own research scientists. In the study, it says, who did it. So you always need to keep that in mind. However, it did get approval from the FDA to be prescribed as a game to help treat ADHD in kids. So if we start there, and then we think about what's possible from that point, you've got ADHD, and we know that different parts of the brain activate more or less in ADHD than a person that's neurotypical. And so if you can perform activities that focus on those parts of the brain, then you can start to see improvements in someone's ADHD impairments. In fact, many folks with ADHD will tend to lack hand-eye coordination because that motor cortex part of the brain functions a little differently in a person with ADHD. And so practicing things that require hand-eye coordination help to strengthen that part of the brain, help to strengthen the neurons there. And of course, I'm using very generalized terms here. That is not what a neurologist would say. Strengthening neurons, they don't have muscles. But to improve upon the communication and the connection that happens there, when you start to go sort of A plus B equals C, you can understand how this kind of thing works. So the thing about this is that there's so much that goes into being able to get anything approved in the first place by the FDA. Also thinking about how this is a newer field of treatment that comes with its whole set of concerns and issues. And then you think about, how do I distribute it? Where does it go? How can I create a game that is both fun and can also be one that can be used for treatment? All of those things are what Deepwell Digital Therapy is trying to provide. So what they did is one of the co-founders' name who we were going to talk to is Ryan Douglas. The other co-founder who we were going to talk to is Mike Wilson. Ryan Douglas is a medical expert. Quote here, a noted expert and innovator in the field of mental health, artificial intelligence, and surgical robotics. Ryan has been on the front line of breakthrough therapies in healthcare. And then Mike Wilson, one of the most prolific executive producers in the history of the games industry, has 100 plus games brought to market, 75 million sales globally. So lots of experience on both sides. So you take a very smart brain guy, a very smart health guy, and then you take a very smart games guy, and you combine to make this company that is aiming to provide this experience. What's interesting, I like on the Deepwell DTX site, it explains kind of what their whole process is. And so somebody who is looking to create a game, they submit their game that is then reviewed by veteran game developers. And so at the very beginning, it's kind of like, hey, does this make sense? Is this something that is going to possibly be a good thing for therapy? After that, they've built a toolkit that helps to incorporate the actual therapeutic technologies. So imagine that you're a game developer who's just making a regular game, but you go, you know what would be nice? If we added some therapeutic benefits to this game. So you can submit a game and they're like, oh, this is a really awesome game. And we can see like, oh, these puzzles that you have in your game, those would be great to help with mental health in some way. Then it can get certified for treatment. So their team is going to help them with the mental health concerns, including stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD, OCD, and addiction. And then last but not least, they can help you get your game published. So this is kind of the first big one that I've heard that's working on this so fully. And what I like is that Douglas says in the Verge interview that says we don't necessarily make the game therapeutic. The games are therapeutic, and we can deliver it as a therapy. And so the point there is like we may not know the therapeutic quality that already exists in games, and so it's kind of teasing out the potential there. Because again, let me go back to what I was saying before. I should note, I back in college went to a neuropsychologist and had my brain scanned and did the whole talk therapy part of things and was diagnosed with ADHD. So I've had ADHD for years, and because of who I am, I of course did a lot of research on it because I just like to know as much as possible. And so I know a whole lot about I'm doing this because the hand-eye coordination thing is a big thing. I'm never big into sports as a Ute, partially because I was not good at them and I did not like making a fool of myself. And so come to find out that my brain as a neurodiverse brain is unique in that way, and that I can work to strengthen that part of my brain and that can improve things. Even a standard video game, a one where you are, say, a soldier that's going after zombies or something, the trigger and the moving the joystick to try and line things up, all of that is actually working on the brain. So they're kind of making the point there. Look, this is something that may already exist in your game. Let us help you bring it to a new audience and in a new way that can then show how it can help with these different things. So I'm interested to see, because right now, ADHD is, and I want to be clear, as I say, it's the easiest. I mean that in the sense that, as I said, there's a whole history of how games already help someone who has ADHD with the motor cortex functioning. But let's think about PTSD, OCD, all of these other ones that may be a little bit more challenging to target, to try and combat. And I'm really interested to see what they do with that for sure. I'm curious, if your child was prescribed a video game, you're in the tech industry. Yeah. You know tech. So I have a feeling that you would be less skeptical about it. But as a parent in general, how do you think sort of the average parent would react to their child's therapist saying, you know what? It's time for them to sit down and play this video game. Screen time, baby.
Yeah, right. I know, right? It kind of goes counter to what I think many parents, I imagine anyways, think about screen time and its effects on children, right? And as a parent of kids, 12 and 8, I was having this conversation with him literally this morning because, I had to come here and it's like, please don't be on the TV all morning. Like at 11 o'clock, can you turn it off and just figure out something to do that's like not technology because you've been watching it for a couple of hours? Just figure something else out. It's a constant struggle as a parent to try and find that balance and say, hey, this is actually healthy for you to get some distance and to take a step away and to do something else. This kind of goes counter to that, right? Which is to say, oh, by the way, actually do this screen time activity, and this can actually improve your condition. So, but at the same time, like as a parent, I want to trust the medical practitioners in my life and in our life, directing kind of, their advice on what we should do for the health of our children. So if I had concerns with my children, ADHD or whatever it is, and my doctor said, hey, we think this would help, I would certainly try it. And I don't know if that goes for everybody. Like, yeah, I'm probably more open to that because technology is something that I've always been, open to and passionate about. So maybe that changes my own perspective on that. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure a lot of parents would at least try. I mean, I suppose it doesn't hurt to try.
There you go.
And see. I'm curious to know, how long it takes for this in order to get to whatever the other side is. Like what is the other side and how long does it take to get there for a child who is prescribed playing this game,
Absolutely. Yeah. Another interesting point here that the Verge points out is that it doesn't take as much testing or as rigorous testing, obviously, to be able to pass, for the FDA to pass and clear these games as it does drugs. Those obviously have a lot more involved. So it does help the company to be able to help get these through the process and for these companies to be able to do it a little bit quicker. But I mean, we heard 7 years for the ADHD game, the ADHD therapy. So it could still take a while. But I do like the idea of then, if you've already got a game out there and you are looking at sort of the therapeutic benefits that could be part of the game, I think if I was a game developer, I would want to go through the process just to see, are there any parts of my game that do lend themselves well to helping with OCD or something like that?
Yeah.
And then it starts to get your thinking going forward. How could I make games that have even more of this built into it?
Yeah, that play mechanic.
Exactly.
And add that in. And, if this gets to a point to where there is some sort of, like I'm thinking of, game, the packaging on games where it has like the rating, right?
Yes, yeah.
And maybe there's a little symbol that signifies, like this game actually has, it passes the threshold of having enough of these elements where we can put this logo on there that says this is clear, this is beneficial to children with ADHD or whatever that looks like.
Kind of like how Cheerios say can help lower your cholesterol level.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. If you do it right, it can help with that. So that's that would be interesting.
Which is not necessarily to say that the next Red Dead Redemption is going to solve your kid's ADHD.
Right, exactly.
But if you know that there are elements within the game that are proven to actually benefit someone with that condition, that's nice to know. And maybe that gives a parent a little bit of extra peace of mind in the process.
I agree.
Yeah.
So yes, that is Deepwell Digital Therapies. We'll be keeping an eye on Digital Therapeutics. We'll be keeping an eye on that company, and who knows? Maybe we'll have the co-founders on in the future when they release their first game, because I know that's something they're working on, but they're keeping very tight-lipped about it.